Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump designating Saudi Arabia a non-NATO ally and hailing Saudi's investment in the U.S. and the president touting affordability in a push for the midterm elections. All unclassified Epstein file materials could soon be released. A bill is heading to President Trump's desk after clearing the House and Senate. Former FBI Director James Comey is in court today to ask for a dismissal of the federal case against him, calling it selective and vindictive. Immigration enforcement agents have arrested more than 250 people in North Carolina. Border Patrol officers are set to arrive in New Orleans by the end of the week. President Trump announced that the U.S. will designate Saudi Arabia a major non-NATO ally. We discussed this with the Middle East expert. Digging deeper into China's control over the rare earths market. Today, a select committee heard from domestic leaders in the industry on how the U.S. can cut off its dependence.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Congress voted almost unanimously to force the release of more files on the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The House passed a measure with a vote of 427 to 1. It will soon arrive at President Trump's desk. Here's more.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The resolution requiring the release of all unclassified records on Epstein was then sent to the Republican-majority Senate, which swiftly approved it.
The American people have waited long enough. Jeffrey Epstein's victims have waited long enough. Let the truth come out. Let transparency reign. And I urge my Republican colleagues, let the Senate act today.
Is there an objection? Without objection, so ordered.
The Senate has now passed the Epstein bill as soon as it comes over from the House.
The bill could now go to President Donald Trump for his signature as soon as Wednesday. A senior White House official said that Trump plans to sign the bill when it reaches his desk. Trump appeared frustrated about the tension surrounding the issue hours before the vote.
As far as the Epstein files I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right.
The president has said he has no connection to Epstein's crimes and has called the issue a Democratic hoax.
Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers is resigning from the board of OpenAI. The move comes after a House committee released emails he had exchanged with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Those emails showed years of personal correspondence between the two men. Since the release, Summers has said he plans on stepping away from public commitments. He previously served as former President Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary. He was also former President Barack Obama's National Economic Council Director, as well as Harvard University's president. Harvard is launching an investigation into Summers' relationship with Epstein. President Trump speaking at the Saudi Investment Forum in Washington, touting billions of dollars in investments and financial ties between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu, who's at the White House. Mari, good afternoon to you. What is the latest from President Trump's remarks?
Don, good afternoon. Yes, just moments ago, President Trump was here at the Kennedy Center speaking to an audience of top business and tech executives. This is just a day after the president rolled out the red carpet for Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, for a day of pomp and circumstance, which culminated in a black tie dinner here at the White House. President Trump is now announcing that $270 billion in deals are being signed between dozens of companies today, thanking those companies in the audience for bringing jobs back to American workers. This is also coming as the Saudi prince Tuesday vowed to up his previous $600 billion investment in the U.S. to $1 trillion. And President Trump also announces today that he's officially designating Saudi Arabia a major non-NATO ally, touting the two countries' strategic partnership. Take a look.
We officially designated the kingdom yesterday as the major non-NATO ally. That's a big deal. And we're going to be selling Saudi Arabia some of the greatest military equipment ever built, including nearly 300 American-made tanks. And this week, our countries also signed groundbreaking agreements on civil nuclear energy, critical minerals, and artificial intelligence. And yesterday, the Crown Prince announced that the number that they'll be investing in the United States is $1 trillion. So that's...
President Trump, in his remarks, also vows to help settle the conflict and the war in Sudan by working out a peace deal there at the request of the Saudi Crown Prince. His announcement was met with applause at the Kennedy Center, the president adding how influential his tariff strategy has been in ensuring national security and brokering multiple peace deals. Meanwhile, President Trump is ramping up his messaging on affordability in anticipation of next year's midterm elections. And as Democrats have ascribed their recent off-year election wins earlier this month to messaging on affordability, President Trump dismisses Democrats' recent focus on affordability, calling it a, quote, hollow catchphrase instead of serious policy. He adds that he's been undoing damage from the previous administration. Take a look.
We're also making incredible strides to make America affordable again. That's a new word that they're using. Affordability, they talk. They had the worst inflation in history. If you look at the numbers, since I took office, core inflation is now below 2.7%. It was at numbers that nobody had ever seen before with them. Since March, egg prices are down 86%. Think of 86%. Many other prices are down in a similar number. Yeah, look at all the fake news. They started screaming at me, eggs, eggs. I didn't know anything about it. I said, what's going on with eggs? They're up quadruple. I said, I've only been here for 3 days.
Meanwhile, First Lady Melania Trump and Second Lady Usha Vance are in North Carolina today, where they are visiting with service members and military families to honor those who served during the holiday season at the largest Marine Corps base on the East Coast. The First and Second Ladies are also making stops at local schools, where students are presenting their projects on the Presidential AI Challenge, which is an initiative spearheaded by First Lady Melania Trump. Don, back to you.
Thank you. Attorneys for former FBI Director James Comey appeared before a federal judge in Virginia today to ask for a dismissal of what they call a selective and vindictive prosecution by the Trump administration. The Trump administration charged Comey in September with making a false statement to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding. Comey's attorney accused the Trump administration of signaling out his client because of the president's personal criticisms. During the hearing today, the presiding judge questioned Lindsay Halligan, the charging U.S. attorney, about a claim that the entire grand jury didn't review the full indictment. Comey's attorney had accused the government of altering the indictment after the jury declined to approve one count. Halligan pushed back and directed the judge to the transcript of a back and forth between one juror and the magistrate. Comey's attorney asked the judge to dismiss the case with prejudice, meaning the case cannot be brought for a second time. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani announced he will keep New York's current police commissioner. Here's more.
During his campaign, he pledged to keep Jessica Tisch in the role. She is seen as being at odds with Mamdani's views on policing. Democrats who would otherwise not have supported his campaign gave their backing because of his vow to retain Tisch. Mamdani's critics fear his past views on police could lead to policies that allow crime to grow. But Tisch's time leading the police department under Mayor Eric Adams has led to a significant drop in murders, though felony assault numbers are the highest they've been in at least 24 years. Tisch opposed New York's 2019 criminal justice reforms, seen as creating a soft-on-crime situation, while Mamdani wanted even more of the same kind of changes.
Billionaire activist Tom Steyer has entered California's race for governor. The Democrat and former presidential candidate will compete against several contenders. Incumbent California Governor Gavin Newsom is prevented from running due to term limits. Several Democrats are running to take his place, including former U.S. Representative Katie Porter and former Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. Steyer is the co-founder of Beneficial State Bank, a nonprofit community development bank. The Democrat is also the founder of NextGen, a youth voter engagement organization. According to Steyer's campaign website, the billionaire is running on a platform of housing affordability, campaign finance policy, and education. Both the House and Senate passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, sending the bill to President Trump to sign into law. Joining us to discuss is legal analyst Bobby Ann Cox, civil rights attorney and fellow at the Brownstone Institute. So Bobby Ann, always great to have you here. Good afternoon. So if you could just clarify some things up for us. Senators had locked in agreement to pass the Epstein Files bill as soon as it arrived from the House. So what is the reason that Congress must be involved here?
Well, basically, Congress is exercising its oversight power. And with that power, they are now passing a law, the House and the Senate, and it'll go to President Trump's desk shortly thereafter. But they're passing a law that is going to compel or force the Department of Justice and the FBI to release files that have to do with Jeffrey Epstein and the investigation into the allegations about sexual assault and sex trafficking and child trafficking and such. So they are exercising their oversight power, and this is something that is wildly popular. As we saw, it passed. There was only one person that voted against it in the House of Representatives yesterday. All the other members of the House, whether they were Republican or Democrat, voted to pass this law. And then the Senate, before the law even arrived the bill even arrived into the Senate agreed unanimously. So that's all the senators, whether they were Democrat or Republican, decided that they were going to vote in favor of this bill as soon as it came into the Senate. So effectively, it has passed both the Senate and the House of Representatives. So the next step is it would go to the president's desk for his signature, and then that it would officially become law. And then once passed and signed into law, then the Department of Justice and the FBI would have 30 days to turn over or make public those files. Anything that's not classified, of course, classified information will remain classified, and redactions can be made. So we'll see. 30 days once it's signed into law.
Right, and President Trump has indicated publicly that he will, in fact, sign it into law. So, Bobby Ann, would you characterize this bill? The purpose here is solely about transparency and accountability.
I would say it is mostly about transparency and accountability, of course. So this was really spearheaded by one of the Republican members of the House of Representatives, Representative Thomas Massie. He is the one that drafted this. It was co-sponsored by a Democrat as well. And he forced the vote to take place on the floor, on the House of Representatives floor. So he forced it to a vote. And as we saw yesterday, it passed overwhelmingly. As I said previously, only one member of the House of Representatives voted against it. So they voted, it was almost a unanimous vote, and it passed. So yes, this is something that is the purpose is to reveal what the investigation thus far by the FBI and the Department of Justice has revealed and make that public. I mean, the law that they are the bill that they're passing right now requires that the files, anything that is not classified, be released to the public and be in a searchable, downloadable format. So it's very specific, actually, the law itself, in how these files need to be released. So yes, it is about accountability and transparency. They want Americans to be able to look at the documents themselves, and accountability. Yeah, they want that too, because we've heard a lot of whispers and rumors about names of high-profile individuals, both American and abroad, that are supposedly involved or were involved with Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein Island. So, this is what the public wants. And apparently it's what Congress wants too, because it has passed overwhelmingly.
So in terms of the release of the files and redactions as well, is there a role that judges will play in this?
Well, at this point, there aren't judges involved. Right now, we're dealing with the other two branches of government. We're dealing with Congress, which is the legislative branch, and we're dealing with the president and the executive branch. That's the Department of Justice and the FBI both sit in the executive branch under the president. So we're dealing with those two branches of government right now. The courts are not involved in this specific issue at this point. So as far as redactions are concerned, that would be something that either the Department of Justice or the FBI could do. The law does have a provision that says that, sensitive information, for example, sensitive information about any of the victims would be redacted or can be redacted by the Department of Justice or the FBI prior to releasing the information to the public. And obviously that is for, we want to protect those people and their names and their private information, especially if these, alleged sexual assaults happened when they were children. So that is very important. So there will be redactions, I'm sure, and the law has provided for that. So we'll see what comes out. If the president does sign this into law, in 30 days' time, we'll see what comes out and what is redacted.
So, Bobby Ann, what do you think might happen after those 30 days when we see the files? Could the materials potentially support civil action, new ones?
Yes, so that is something that could take place, that could happen. If somebody was sexually abused or, trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, even though he is deceased, as you know, he died in 2019, and we're now in 2025. So, 6 years later, you can, as a victim, you can still sue the estate of the deceased person. However, you do have to be careful because, you do have statute of limitations that could come into play. And every state is somewhat different in their statute of limitations on how long after a sexual assault occurs that you can file a civil lawsuit against that person or their estate. And and then at the federal level, there wouldn't be a statute of limitations, but, you have to have a private right of action. So it is a little bit tricky because of the statute of limitations. And it depends on the date of death of the accused and the age of the victim. So there are different things that go into that equation. But ultimately, if all things fall into place, then yeah, we could see some civil lawsuits come out of this once the information and the files are made public. But, there was a compensation fund that was set up by Jeffrey Epstein's estate, and that ran from 2020 to 2021. And in that approximately 1 year time period, the estate had a fund specifically for those who were victims, and they could get compensated from that fund. And of course, they had to sign a release and a waiver saying that they weren't going to sue Jeffrey Epstein's estate or any of his employees and such. And associates that worked for him. So, but yes, there were many people that took many victims that took advantage of that instead of going through the lengthy process of having a lawsuit against the estate. So that was another way that people were compensated. So yes, we'll have to see what comes out if the president signs this into law and see if there are any civil cases that result from it.
Well, all right, Bobby Ann, those were just some things I was wondering today. Thank you for speaking with us.
Yes, thanks for having me on.
Immigration enforcement agents have arrested more than 250 people in North Carolina. Border Patrol officers are set to arrive in New Orleans by the end of next week. Stay tuned for more news after this break.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Don't wait. Call now to find out about our Medicare plan.
Why do we have to sit through so many Medicare commercials this time of year? It's endless.
Good question, Edith. I'm glad you asked. We see so many commercials this time of year because it's the only time, other than special circumstances, when Medicare recipients can change their plan for Part C. Original Medicare only covers Parts A and B, but a Medicare Advantage plan has additional benefits that Original Medicare doesn't offer.
So now's the time to fill those spaces?
That's right, Archie. And every year, there are changes to what benefits you may receive from your Part C plan. Call right now to find out what plan best suits your needs.
It's easy, easy, don't delay. Pick up the phone and call today.
Call now for your free Medicare review.
1-833-469-1754. 1-833-469-1754.
You may now return to your regularly scheduled programming.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
What are toxins? How do they get into our bodies? We are constantly being exposed to toxins in our environment. I've had detox protocol programs in my clinic more than 20 years, helping countless people. MixFix is a custom formulated, full-spectrum organic detox product to achieve better health and overall function. Detoxifying your body 3 to 4 times per year may be the single most important thing you can do. Just scan the QR code and detox your body today.
The Department of Justice is going after a former Olympic snowboarder from Canada. Ryan Wedding is on the FBI's 10 most wanted list due to his alleged crimes. Here's Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about the latest developments in this case.
He controls one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in this world. He is currently the largest distributor of cocaine in Canada. Today, we're unsealing a new indictment, charging Wedding with 2 additional counts of witness tampering and intimidation, murder, money laundering, and drug trafficking.
She added that Wedding also has ties to the Mexican Sinaloa cartel, which is designated as a foreign terrorist organization. And he's allegedly connected to another individual called Atna Anha, who goes by the name of Tupac. Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reports that Anha appeared before court yesterday. He's facing charges related to a murder and cocaine trafficking. According to the outlet, the exact details of the charges against him have been sealed. Immigration enforcement agents have arrested more than 250 people in North Carolina around Charlotte, the state's largest city. The operation that began over the weekend is the latest in President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration. The government has dubbed the deployment Operation Charlotte's Web. The push to carry out arrests in North Carolina expanded to areas around the state capital of Raleigh on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Border Patrol agents are expected to arrive in New Orleans by the end of the week. Around 250 federal agents are set to begin another immigration enforcement operation there in the coming weeks. And New York City will see expanded immigration enforcement soon. Border Czar Tom Homan says that ongoing operations in the sanctuary city will be beefed up.
Regardless of Republican or Democratic city, we're going to enforce our laws across this country and take those public safety threats off the street, Bill. But I'll say this, I've said it from day one. Sanctuary cities, we're flooding the zone because we know they're releasing public safety threats in the communities every day. If the mayor of New York City wants to come and talk about making the streets safer, open up for discussion. I'm willing to meet with anybody. President Trump's willing to meet with anybody. But let's get together and work it together. We much rather work with these sanctuary cities than keep, putting our agents at extreme risk.
The announcement comes 1 month after ICE agents conducted a sweep on street vendors in Manhattan, which turned into chaos after agents were swarmed by protesters. Homan did not say when the escalation in the Big Apple would begin. DHS would oversee any operations. Local leaders oppose the surge, and New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has said his city is committed to upholding its sanctuary policies. The Department of Homeland Security is also launching a 2-month immigration crackdown in Louisiana and Mississippi. The operation is called Swamp Sweep. It will deploy about 250 federal agents beginning in December. It aims to arrest nearly 5,000 people. The Trump administration is moving ahead with major structural changes to the Department of Education. Officials say the steps will reduce bureaucracy, but critics argue the changes could create risks for students. Here's more.
The Department of Education says it's preparing to ship several of its core programs to other federal agencies as part of an effort to dismantle the department and reduce federal spending. According to a press release, one of the most sweeping changes involves moving more than $30 billion in federal education grants to the Department of Labor, which would also take on a larger role in overseeing K-12 programs. Education programs serving Native American students will be transferred to the Department of the Interior, which the administration says will become the key point of contact for tribes and students. International education and foreign language programs will be shifted to the State Department, which the administration says is better placed to streamline funding, improve data collection, and advance national security interests. Childcare programs for parents in college and oversight of foreign medical student accreditation will be reassigned to the Department of Health and Human Services. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon told Fox News yesterday the restructuring is part of an effort to break up Washington bureaucracy and return control to states and local leaders.
And the announcement really follows the plan that President Trump has had since day one, and that is returning education to the states. He fully believes, as do I, the best education is that's closest to the child and not run from a bureaucracy in Washington, D.C.
McMahon said the Department of Education will continue to fund, manage, and oversee the programs it is transferring to other agencies. She called it a test run to see if they will function more efficiently this way. The administration calls these moves interagency agreements and says they are allowed under the Economy Act. During his campaign, President Trump repeatedly vowed to close the Department of Education, arguing that authority should return to the states. But that's a decision the administration says it's ultimately up to Congress. McMahon on Tuesday questioned the necessity of having a Department of Education at all, saying the recent government shutdown had no effect on students and teachers.
The Federal Department of Education furloughed 90% of its staff. And what happened? Nothing. Schools stayed open. Students went to class. Teachers got paid. The shutdown proved our schools don't depend on Washington bureaucracy to function.
The restructuring has already triggered sharp backlash from Democrats. Senator Elizabeth Warren described the announcement as part of an assault on public education. Some Republicans are cheering the changes. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds called it a great step toward eliminating the federal education bureaucracy and ensuring greater efficiency in delivering services to schools. But Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, whose district includes parts of Philadelphia's suburbs, defended the Department of Education's functions as foundational. He said changing them without congressional oversight would pose real risks to students.
Spain's parliament plans to investigate Meta for possible privacy violations. The investigation stemmed from research that found Meta used a hidden mechanism to track web activity.
They've
revealed how this company, digital platform Meta, the company behind Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, has allegedly been spying millions of users without their knowledge. How? Through a hidden system that allowed them to track their internet activity even when they browse the internet in a private mode or while using a VPN.
Spain's investigation into the U.S. tech giant could further sour relations with the U.S. The U.S. has criticized Spain over its failure to meet NATO spending targets and for its friendliness with Beijing. Spain's government said Meta may have violated various European Union laws on security and privacy. The Spanish Prime Minister said the law is above any algorithm or any large technology platform, and said the issue cannot go unpunished. Spain's government said Meta will be called to testify before a lower house committee. The Trump administration has criticized the way Europe has treated U.S. tech companies. Last year, the European Commission fined Meta over $900 million over Facebook marketplace practices. With AI chatbots being built onto everyday devices, AI companies are taking steps to address concerns, but lawmakers say additional oversight is needed. In light of some jarring interactions with people, NTD's David Lam has more on a House panel hearing where psychiatrists share their findings.
As artificial chatbots become more available, lawmakers look into the risks and benefits of the products.
My goal for today's hearing is to have a balanced, honest conversation about the potential benefits and harms that AI chatbots pose to Americans.
On Tuesday, experts testified before the U.S. House Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations on Artificial Intelligence. Generative AI chatbots are computer programs powered by large language models, LLMs, that simulate human conversation with the user.
A new term has been coined, AI psychosis, which describes when a user's interactions with a chatbot lead to distorted beliefs or even delusions. As we've seen in some absolutely tragic cases, users experiencing mental health crises have even taken their own lives.
Congress members mentioned that since AI chatbots emerged, these cases have happened after long-term relationships with chatbots. In some cases, the chatbots encouraged or affirmed suicidal ideations. And while there were benefits such as accessibility, the doctors also pointed out current challenges.
In another study of women in a war zone, access to an AI chatbot was able to reduce anxiety by 30%, although human therapy was more effective at 50%. However, AI chatbots are not yet ready to replace clinicians or therapists.
If I try to do a search or use a chatbot to, plumb more papers in a particular area, I have found that they generally just fabricate the titles and they don't produce outputs that I can rely on for my work.
What happens in a lot of research papers now is something called LLM as judge. And so what they do is they actually have the large language model read all those outputs and try to code it. So anytime you see the word LLM as judge, I would be careful or say we should at least have a human reading it and checking over it.
Sensio University reported this year, based on a survey, among the respondents who use AI and self-report mental health challenges, almost 49% use large language models for therapeutic support. Towards the end of the hearing, Congresswoman Kim Schreier urged the public to seek real-life relationships during a time when there's fewer, she says. David Lam, NTD News.
President Trump announced that the U.S. will designate Saudi Arabia a major non-NATO ally. We discuss this with a Middle East expert after the break.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. How did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
President Trump announced that the U.S. will designate Saudi Arabia a major non-U.S. ally. Joining us to discuss is David Wormser, senior analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former senior advisor to Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and strategic affairs. So, David, good afternoon to you. This designation, comes with a number of benefits for Saudi Arabia, like, for example, easier access to U.S. military equipment. I mean, does this signal that Saudi Arabia is now among Washington's closest partners?
Well, yes, it definitely draws Saudi Arabia a lot closer after a decade or more of some tense relationships between the United States and Saudi Arabia. But it actually returns Saudi Arabia to a role it's had for most of the last year, which is to be one of the most important American allies in the region. So this really restores a sort of relationship rather than paves a whole new way.
So President Trump said today that the U.S.-Saudi Arabia partnership is one of the most consequential in the world. And you're saying that this restores the relationship. Why does the Trump administration consider it so critical?
Well, I mean, first of all, just the oil. There's a lot of oil in Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia also holds tremendous influence over several other countries in the region, such as Bahrain and so forth. These countries have major strategic assets, like a naval base in Bahrain. CENTCOM is in Qatar. But we have major assets otherwise in Saudi Arabia. And of course, there's a lot of oil, natural gas in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and elsewhere. So there's a lot of strategic importance to that. But there's a further strategic importance, which is new, which is this new corridor emerging between India, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Greece. And that is an important trade corridor, but really it's a strategic alliance emerging that creates a southern belt to stop the Chinese Belt and Road, which is pushing in from the north and is anchored more to Qatar, Iran, parts of Afghanistan, Turkey. So it has a major strategic play. It also is a major question over the Palestinians and who really governs the essence of the Palestinian question. And the Israelis trust the Saudis a lot more, Saudis and the UAE, a lot more than they trust Qatar and Turkey. And as a result, the more Saudi Arabia emerges as the voice of the Palestinian question, the more actually the Israelis are comfortable with proceeding forward on that issue.
So, David, you brought up, pardon me. David, you brought up China's Belt and Road Initiative. You also brought up Iran. So Russia as well also playing significant roles in the Middle East region, all of which have complicated relationship with the U.S. as well. So my question here is, how aligned are Saudi Arabia's goals with the U.S. interests in this region?
I think they're quite closely aligned. They're not entirely identical, but they're quite closely aligned, more so than sometimes Washington appreciates, because the Saudis always hedge a little bit. They are very cautious by nature. And as a result, sometimes they hedge a little bit with China and otherwise, and that gives the impression that there's light of day. But Saudi Arabia would love nothing more than a robust United States, a very committed United States, and a very confident United States, because it has always thrived the most when that happens. So in many ways, Saudi Arabia's relationship with the United States does reflect a strong parallel of interests. The fact that the Saudis and the Israelis are drawing closer strategically, not necessarily peace yet, but strategically, that it reinforces the American presence in the region without a huge American commitment.
So, David, there's one thing that I have to ask you, because a reporter yesterday during the meeting between Mohammed bin Salman and President Trump asked about 9/11, and the Crown Prince said that the 9/11 plot was used by bin Laden to drive a wedge in U.S.-Saudi relations. Would you just be able to comment on that? How has 9/11 shifted U.S. foreign policy on the Middle East or changed the relationship with Saudi Arabia?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think the Saudi role in 9/11 has never been fully appreciated. I think it was the Saudis had a policy before 9/11 of trying to export some of their internal problems. They funded some of these organizations abroad that led to 9/11, and but as soon as that happened, the Saudis understood it and they cooperated with us in the war on terror. This is already 24 years ago, so they've been a fairly good ally in those issues on Islam, Islamism, the radical jihadis, and so forth. Moreover, their nemesis in the region, Qatar, has gone the other direction. Qatar has become the main funder now of the Muslim Brotherhood and the various terror world that emerges from that. So in many ways, the Saudis, despite the fact that they really were not careful and they were complicit in 9/11, not wittingly, but unwittingly, by having funded some of these organizations that went bad, really bad, they actually are playing the productive role in this, and the Qataris are the ones we should be worrying about now.
Okay, David, just one last thing that I'm wondering today. I'm curious to get your comments on, because President Trump brought up the Board of Peace. How well is that going to work to oversee an interim government in Gaza? Trump says heads of major countries will be on it.
It will work well only when it doesn't work at the beginning. And by that I mean, I think it's fairly clear by now that Hamas has no intention of disarming, and that there's no international coalition of forces that will disarm Hamas. And that's a bottleneck. It has to be disarmed. So in the end, the only thing that can really bring about the disarmament of Hamas is Israel finishing the war, which I believe is coming, that they will have to go into the remainder of Gaza and physically dismantle Hamas and comb the area. And then the Board of Peace can come in and help really begin to reestablish and rebuild Gaza. And I think the Saudis and others, that's what the critical issue is. They know nobody will go in as long as Hamas continues to exist. It's just too dangerous, and it will always lead to a loss of investment. So it's really a precondition that we have a problem first, which is that the Israelis will be forced essentially to go in violently to disarm Hamas, and then we really have a board of peace and a structure where people will send their troops to keep the peace and begin to develop Gaza.
Well, okay, David, that should do it for today. Really appreciate you always talking to us. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
President Trump says world leaders will sit on a new board of peace tasked with guiding an interim government in Gaza. It's part of the second phase of the U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas terror group. The deal shifts security control to an international stabilization force with a 2-year mandate. The board will oversee security, humanitarian aid, and reconstruction. It will also eventually help transition authority to a reformed Palestinian Authority. Trump, who will chair the board, says major nations want to join, urging Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to take a seat. The UN Security Council approved the U.S. drafted resolution backing the plan, with Russia and China abstaining. Trump called the vote a major step toward stability, saying the board's work in Gaza could grow to wider regions as efforts toward a lasting ceasefire continue. A select committee hosted U.S. leaders in rare earths and magnets today after it released a report on China's dominance and predatory practices in the market. Here's what the chair of the committee, Michigan Representative John Mulinar, had to say.
When the Chinese government controls critical minerals, it then has the power to dictate what we say and what we do. This is because if we don't do what they want, they can turn off the flow of critical minerals and cripple our industry. This is not a theoretical problem. The Chinese government has weaponized the rare earth supply chain against the United States.
The House Committee's report revealed how China has manipulated critical mineral prices for decades. It went on to accuse Beijing of using the minerals as an economic weapon. Today, the committee hosted 3 domestic companies to share their experience and challenges. Neuron Magnetics makes the world's only permanent magnet with no rare earths needed. Lithium Americas is developing the largest lithium deposit in the U.S. And MP Materials operates the only rare earth mine in the U.S. located in California. Here's what the Chief Communications Officer of MP Materials had to say about the situation.
China's sweeping export controls this year were a significant wake-up call. They disrupted supply chains, triggered factory shutdowns in the United States, and they underscored an important truth. Rare earths may be a small upstream industry worth just tens of billions of dollars, but they underpin trillions in downstream economic activity and millions of jobs. Physical AI, robotics, advanced semiconductors, electric vehicles, blenders, everything. These are the industries that are the backbone of the U.S. economy. This vulnerability created the conditions for urgent coordinated action.
The 3 companies said numerous solutions are needed. This includes addressing China's predatory pricing and establishing true price transparency, streamlined and predictable permitting for projects, and as well rewarding domestic companies who buy domestic materials and magnets. Now, France's Louvre Museum will install 100 external cameras by the end of 2026, and the plan comes as the Louvre tightens security 1 month after a high-profile heist. Today, the Louvre's director detailed additional measures the museum would take.
Nos liens avec la préfecture de police seront renforcés.
Our ties with the police prefecture will be strengthened, and I would like to thank the police prefecture for its mobilization and for very fruitful meetings that we currently have. This especially includes the upcoming installation of an advanced mobile outpost of the National Police within the estate of the Louvre.
The daylight robbery took place exactly 1 month ago on October 19th. During the heist, 4 robbers used a mobile ladder to steal over $100 million worth of jewels. The loot has yet to be recovered. 4 suspects have been charged. Officials have admitted there was inadequate security camera coverage outside the museum and on the balcony involved in the break-in. New York City continues to ring in the holiday spirit with Miss America 2026 kicking off this year's Madison Avenue Street lighting event. More news after this break.